Average at Best Cornhole back here again, and we got something a little different for you guys today. We were finally able to get our hands on a complete line of L, R, and H bags, and the ones that we ended up with are the Guardian X's. And so we're going to kind of tell you what the differences are between there. Is there any? Is this just a marketing gimmick so you buy the same bag again, or is there really value in having an L, an R, and an H?
Yeah, basically we started with the L's, and then we liked them so much. Justin's like, I got to get those R's, and then he liked those so much. He's like, well, I got to try the H's now. So here we are. We've been playing all three of these quite a bit, and we do see some differences, and we're going to lay all those out for you. First, we're going to briefly talk about speeds, and they are rated at 5 on the slow, 9 on the fast side. So we had this great idea. We're going to use the ramp. We're going to run all these down. We're going to show you that the H is, this much faster than all the other ones. But it didn't work out that way, and the ramp really didn't show us much, so we're not going to bore you with those videos.
Yeah, now I will say, with them all being rated the same, I feel right now at least the H is a little faster. You could chalk that up to different carpet colors if that's what you believe in, because they're all different. But I really think right now it's just that these are the newest set. They're the least broken in. They're not nearly as fuzzed up as those other ones. And with the little bit of extra mass, that's probably why it feels like a quicker bag to me.
Next is a template, and that is where we're going to see, a little bit of differences here. So we're still measuring bags, but we're done posting the measurements that we measured of the bags, because I'm sure you've seen everything that's going on with the ACL now. And Ultra showed you how you can manipulate, a bag's measurements real good. I will tell you that because of less fill, they're still using the same size material fabrics. So the L, it is going to be slightly larger than the R, which is going to be slightly larger than the H. And then the opposite, the H's are going to be a little bit thicker than the R's, than the L's. But, we're talking minute differences. Yeah, right. The difference is the weight. And we found out when we measured the L's that they were kind of near the middle. Not the middle, but the bottom of the tolerance. So we were thinking, okay, the R's are probably going to be right around 16, which is nominal. That was not the case. They only came in at 15.85 ounces, which was a little surprising to us. That's pretty common for other bags that we weigh, but we were thinking the way the rules went with the LRH that the R was supposed to be, at nominal. Actually had to go back and look it up, and that is not true. Just ACL states that they got to be different. And then the H's, they do come in above nominal at 16.25 ounces.
All right, and the fill and flop on these, and they all have the same fill ratio of, what they have, but there's more or less in them. So, of course, the L's are going to be, floppier than the R's, and the R's are going to be floppier than the H's, and that's, kind of the premises of having multiple options here. Mm-hmm.
So the meat of the comparison here, we're going to the slide up. And before we start, just want to say if you're enjoying our content, please like and subscribe to this video. It helps us out. It shows us that maybe we're heading in the right direction.
All right, and with the slide up and trying to find the differences here, keep in mind that we're kind of splitting hairs. We've really done our best to see what the differences are between these bags, and some of it's very minimal, some of it's very noticeable. We'll start with forgiveness, and of course the L's going to get the nod here, right? It's got a lot more room for those beads to move around in the bag, so you're going to get less kicks and things like that. As far as whole bodiness on these, we really nod towards the R's, right?
I agree with that, yeah.
Just something about those R's, it just seems to be that perfect balance of, bead ratio to, how they move around in the bag. I don't know what it is, but them things just love to go in the hole, and it outshined the other two.
Yeah, it's almost like the H, there's not enough room for the beads to move around in the fabrics, and in the L's, there's too much room for the beads to move around in the fabrics or something. No explanation, it's just our opinion, but yeah, we think the R's get the nod for whole bodiness.
All right, collectability on these, and the H's and the R's are excellent at collecting. The L's are also very good at collecting, but sometimes you would just tend to not grab. I think sometimes your beads may be over to one side to where just a little bit of extra fabric's hanging, so you hit that and it just doesn't come along for the ride with the bag that you're throwing. Versus the R's and the H, they seem to, you hit your spot, you were going to collect no matter what. I personally still lean a little bit towards the R on collectability, only because what I notice is if, I say I put up a blocker, which I've been trying to do a lot, and I'm just a little bit off, say, to the left side, if I have to kind of cut and grab, the R's seem to do that tumbleweed effect that I like to see when I'm trying to collect a bag. It's, as long as you hit them into each other, they just kind of roll together and would go in the hole. And the H's, probably just because of the little bit of extra mass, sometimes it would just move that bag rather than cut and grab. But outside of that, all of the variations are pretty excellent at cutting.
Yeah, and then the L's, what I really liked about it, it wasn't very good at collecting like the others were, but it could bunch up and squeeze into tight areas or whatever. So the opposite, if your opponent has a blocker and you're trying to sneak around it, sometimes you would collect that.
Yeah.
You had a better chance of not collecting that and you sneaking around and going in the hole just yourself with those L's.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good point that I don't think we touch on very often is, how good is a bag at beating a blocker? So if somebody puts up that perfect blocker, you're not good at going up. I'm not good at going up. I'm better at, stepping out and cutting around that bag. And yeah, the L really shines with that. If you get that cut action, it'll slip right around it and not disturb his bag, versus you try doing that with H, you got a better chance of grabbing his bag accidentally and taking it with you.
And even if you do bump it, there's less weight there, so it's not going to move it as much.
Right. Capable shots, and I think some of the things we've already said, it kind of alluded to the fact that the H is going to take the crown there. It's larger mass and stuff. It just seems to do really well with kind of everything that we try to do. It cuts really well, and I've had some attempts at rolling that bag, and they've rolled. They haven't rolled in the hole, but they've rolled. So it's a little bit better at that. Versus the Guardian XLs, while they still cut and do capable shots as well, you just gotta be better at it, I guess.
Yeah, try a little bit harder.
Yeah, you gotta
not be average, I guess.
Right.
Moving on to playability, and this is our opinion on what you should do with this bag. Basically who should be throwing this bag, and we're gonna start with the L's, obviously, because they're at the bottom. That's the hole runner, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can cut them. Other people can do other things, but average players and maybe below average, it's going to be the most forgiving. It's just going to be the easiest to run holes with.
Yeah, and it's. You almost move up the ladder, I guess, in that aspect, to where this is going to be, for a little bit more advanced, a brand new player is, going to struggle a little more with the R and greatly, struggle a little more with the H.
Yeah, and then speaking of the R's, that's like the do everything bag, like the Swiss Army knife, I guess, out of the bunch, because, it's a little bit better at the L's, with the capable shots, a little bit less than the H, but it's a little less than, the forgiveness, but you're still going to be able to do all those shots with the R, maybe just not as easy as the H.
Yeah, and just to kind of add into it, it's, the R is, it's, got the right feel. It's active enough, to do kind of all the capable shots, but it's also got that forgiveness. Again, like he said, Swiss Army knife. I love that term for this bag because that's really what it is. It's that perfect balance between them. Going into the H, where it's going to shine, is going to be a dirty game, right? It's a lot easier to put up a blocker. It's a heavier bag, more difficult for your opponent to move out of the way, or push through it, and that's a great choice of what to do with this bag.
Yeah, I was calling that the dirty bag out of the bunch, because that's what you're going to do with it. Set your blocker, make them try to defeat your blocker, and if you're good enough, you roll over the pile and do anything you want with it.
Yep. Now, with that in mind, you got to be very good at putting up blockers, because last weekend at our Switch, I was throwing these quite a bit, and because they're still not 100% broken in, I guess you could say, they're a little quick, so I was struggling, and ones that I thought were about to be a good blocker ended up in the hole or on the back of the board. A little bit of company information. If you guys don't know much about Brotherhood, they are a great company, veteran owned. You can find them right at their website at brotherhoodcornhole.com. And then they have a Facebook page as well, and that is at Brotherhood Cornhole.
It leads us to our final thoughts and cost. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but there's no cost difference between the fill levels. $100 for a set, but there is discount codes available. So get on Facebook, search out for those reps, and get their discount code so you can use it and save yourself a little bit of money.
All right, and get into my final thoughts. The first thing I want to say is I commented at the opening of this video is this a marketing gimmick? Selling us the same bag with just a little bit of variations? No, right? It's not a marketing gimmick. There is a substantial difference when you're actually playing these bags between pretty much all three of them. Now, with that said, the L's and the R's are, the step from L to R, while you can notice it, it's very minimal. But the step from the R to the H, is very noticeable. There's a big difference. So at the end of the day, these should exist. It was a great idea to, make one of each. So depending on what type of thrower you are, where you're at in your evolution of your throw, you have great choices here.
Yeah, you choose which one fits your play style.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the ACL intended that when they allowed LRH bags. They were thinking people were going to mix and match as they're throwing.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's happening. Now it's like you got a great bag and then, find which one works for you the best. Yeah, my thoughts on it is the XR is going to be the most popular. If you're undecided where you're at right now, I think you should start with the Rs and then gauge if you want to get the other ones, because it is the do-all out of, it has the best of both worlds, essentially. Yeah. So it's going to be the easiest for you to learn how to throw that bag compared to the L that, has its advantages but has disadvantages.
Right.
As long as the H, has its advantages, but then that comes with disadvantages.
Yeah.
It's like the R, equals all that out.
Yeah.
No, I think that's pretty much all we got to say on these. And if you're going to be average at something, be average at cornhole. With our bags.